Hey everyone, welcome to this video, and today's video is all about how to correctly set up a tattoo coil machine. Now, on the basis of it, this video might seem quite simplistic, but it's one of those subjects, if it's not done right from the beginning, setting up your coil machine, it can cause all sorts of problems with your tattoo. So really nailing the basic knowledge of setting up your machine is key. It's kind of like building a house on solid ground rather than building it on sand. So having that really solid foundation of knowledge is going to take you a lot further forward as your career as a tattooist. And I'm not just going to be showing you how to set up a coil machine, I'm actually going to be showing you why we set up a coil machine a specific way. Now, if you are serious about learning how to properly use coil machines and you want to know what speed they run at, needle depth, hit and bog, I cover all this in my other videos. So if you subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos, you can find all the information that you need on them. Now, as always, in all my videos, guys, set 10 minutes aside, don't skip any part of this video, watch it in its entirety to get the most out of it. Drop your comments in the box below, let me know what you think of it. If you do like it, please take a second out just to hit the like button. With all that said, guys, let's not waste any more time and get straight into this video. Okay guys, so first thing obviously we need is our tattoo machine. Then we need a disposable grip. This is a Black Widow one and it's a 7 V-tip. I prefer to use the V-tips because obviously the shape of it is like a V, so the needle situates on the back of it a lot easier as opposed to the round tip ones. Next we've got our tattoo needle. Obviously because we're using a 7 V-tip, then we're putting a 7 round liner into it. It's not a bug pin, this one, it's just a standard 12 gauge 7 round liner. If you want to know the difference between bug pins and standard needles, I'll stick a card up on the screen, you can check that after this video. We've got our needle. Really important elastic band. Now I buy purpose-made elastic bands which are come like this. This is like a bag of 1,000 of them, again the Black Widow brand. And the reason I buy them like this and not just your run-of-the-mill ones, you know, from the supermarket, is because these are just the right size that you need. And I mean, a bag of 1,000 like this costs about £6.20 or something like that from the suppliers, so it's well worth getting the purpose-made ones. Next we've got our rubber grommet, stick that there. I use the donut style ones, but some people use the top hat style ones, but either or, it's just personal preference. And finally we've got our clip cord sleeve and our machine bag. So the very first thing we want to be concentrating on is the needle. Now some people don't put a bend in the needle at all, and it's a really bad idea not to do that, because the reason that we put a bend in the needle is so that it locates to the back of the tip. And I'm going to go a little bit more into detail with that with a little bit of animation further on in this video to explain the point even more to you. But a mistake that some people make is when they actually do put a bend in the needle bar, is they bend it too far. And I've seen people bend needle bars, you know, and there's no need to put this massive arc on them, because that can be really counterproductive to the actual purpose of putting the bend in it in the first place. So I'm just going to show you now how much of a bend you actually need to put in the needle. So really important before you actually put the bend in the needle is to make sure that the actual needle is laying on the bottom of the needle bar. I'll just get a close-up on that there. You can see this is the actual needle which is attached here to the needle bar. So the needle bar's on top and the needle underneath. So the bend I'm looking for is literally just a slight bit of pressure. And you can see the bend that I put in that needle bar there, and it's only slight. Well, that's literally all you need to do in it. You don't need to be like bending these needles right the way around or anything like that. But having this bend is really, really important, like I say, as opposed to not having a bend in it at all, which I'll explain in a moment for you. So a quick tip for you to put your needle into your actual grip. Some people struggle with this. They struggle because what they do is they try to feed the needle through. And what happens sometimes when you do that is the actual needle starts to catch inside the tube further down here. You know, instead of it just coming out nicely, it tends to catch a bit. And if that happens, it can barb the needle. And obviously if you do that, you're gonna have to bend the needle, because if you try to tattoo with a barbed needle, it's just gonna tear the skin up. So to alleviate all this, I just let gravity do the job for me. So you literally hold the tube facing down and just drop the needle. and every single time it'll fall to the bottom, no hassle, straight there. Now again, checking the needle bar is actually laying to the bottom of the tip. Let me just get a close-up of this so you can actually see it. So you can see there the actual needle is on the bottom of the bar, which means then the actual needle can rest at the back of the tip there. Now this isn't set in stone, this rule, but I find it's usually the case is when the grip is facing forward, you know, the little hook on top of the needle bar here, usually 9 times out of 10 I find when the gap there is to the left, that's when the needle bar is sat to the bottom and it's seated in its correct position. So what we need to do now is take our grommet, just going to attach that to the needle bar. That's nice and snug in there. And then we're going to loosen our clamp on our machine and feed the needle and the tube up through the clamp. Now if you do get any resistance on this, it's most likely that your clamp needs backing out a bit, so it should just freely go straight through like that. So I'm going to push this all the way to the top, and the reason I do this is because I want the needle to come right out the end here. I don't want it to be catching inside the tip. So for starters, while I'm fixing the grommet to the armature bar, I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit. Just nip it up finger tight. That can hold it in position for me. And then I'm just going to hook the grommet over the armature bar. So now what I want to do is set my needle depth for my machine. So we can see here that the needle is sticking out of the tip. Now I do cover this in another video on how to correctly set your tattoo needle. Now if your needle is sticking out the tip like this when your machine is off, when you've got no power going through it, then your needle isn't set right. Your needle must retract all the way into the tip when the machine is off. And there's many reasons for this. There's safety reasons, there's reasons that the needle can't take up enough ink into the reservoir, and like I said, I do cover all this in the other video, so you click on that card and it'll you can watch it after this video. So how I set the grips on a coil machine is I don't look at it from the front when I'm adjusting the depth, I look at it from the back. And the reason I do that is because when you look at this from the front, so what I'm doing is here, I'm obviously loosening the clamp, and then I'm going to move this up and down to set my needle depth. Now when you look at it from the front, sometimes it can almost give like an optical illusion where it looks like the needle is situated inside the tip, but it actually isn't. And I find it's a lot better to do it from the back. And it's just something I do personally, but it's I just find it's a lot better way of doing it. So like I say, I look at it from the back. Let's just bring that in there, move that down. When the needle just disappears, I'm going to tighten the clamp up. So that's situated in there. So now I'm just going to nip that clamp up. Make sure that tip is facing forward. You can see that there, it's all nice and flush, line with the machine. So now what we need to do is put our elastic band on. Now this is the thing that a lot of people get confused with, the elastic band. This little thing here causes loads of problem, loads of confusion. Now the reason we use this elastic band is because it simply pulls the needle bar towards the machine, which in turn pulls the needle to the back of the tip. Because what we want ultimately is for the needle to be resting in the back of the tip. Now going back to that thing where I said you need to have the slight bend in the needle bar, and that's all again to do with having the needle resting in the back of the tip. Because if there was no bend and the needle bar were just straight up and down, the needle wouldn't rest in the back of the tip, it'd sort of hover this way a little bit more. So I'm going to jump to a little bit of animation now and show you what actually happens when you don't have an elastic band pulling the needle bar. So in this example you can see no elastic band, and the needle, it just tends to bounce around a little bit. It doesn't situate in the back of the tip there. Now this can be a massive problem, especially if you're doing really delicate work or anything like script where you need that pinpoint accuracy. The last thing that you want to be having is a needle that's just bouncing around all over the place. and not having that pinpoint accuracy. So just by applying that little bit of pressure, pulls that needle bar, and in turn obviously pulls the needle to the back of the tip and just lets it situate there so you can get that pinpoint accuracy when you're tattooing. So you've just seen the animation of it, so I'll show you it for real now as well. So let's take the band off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just be moving the armature bar up and down with my finger. I'm going to show you just how much movement that you get on that needle. It's almost wobbling around in the tip there, just bouncing all over the place. Now if you were tattooing with this, like say like really delicate script, it's just going to be an absolute nightmare trying to land that needle exactly where you want it. You can see the movement on that. So by applying that little bit of pressure from the elastic band, will hold that needle bar, which will in turn hold your needle in place while you're tattooing, and you won't get that bouncing around sort of movement. So I'm going to attach the clip cord now to show you what the machine sounds like with just the one band on, all set up ready to go. Now this machine runs at 7 volts, the duty runs at 50%, and it runs at about 130 cycles per second, which is absolutely perfect for lining all those figures. So in this next section, I'm going to explain to you a massive mistake that a lot of people make, and they don't even realize they're making it. And that mistake is when they load loads of elastic bands on here. And I think some people do it because they think it looks cool, or they just think they've been told to put elastic bands on here. So what they do is they take all these elastic bands and they start loading up the machine like this. And what we end up with is, you know, all these elastic bands, and you know, they've got them all spaced out along the needle bar there. And like I say, I think some people think it looks cool, or like they don't even know why they're doing it. But what happens is when you've got all this pressure on this needle bar, is it has a direct impact on your machine running. So this machine, like I say, it runs at 7 volts usually. Look what happens now when I run it at the same voltage. You can hear the difference in that there. The armature bar isn't even being able to make enough contact with the front coil for it to even click in, so you've got that muted sound to it. So if you were to try to tattoo with this, it literally just stops straight away. There's not enough power. So to compensate for this, what people start doing is they up the volts on the power pack. So I'm just going to start increasing the volts on the power pack now till it kicks in. Right, so that's kicked in. That's actually 10 volts I'm running at there. So it's an extra 3 volts that this machine's needed just because I've added all these elastic bands. But what now's happened is it's thrown off all the tuning that I've applied to this machine. So this machine before was running at 50% duty and 130 cycles per second. Now it's running at 45% duty and it's running at 100 cycles per second. So it's thrown off the whole machine just by putting all these elastic bands on, which don't need to be on there. If you don't understand what I'm talking about with duty and cycles per second, check out my other video. Put the card up on the screen, how to tune a coil machine, and that will explain everything for you. So how much pressure does this needle bar need to stay in place, to keep your needle in place at the back of the tip? And the answer is just 1. It's not a great amount of pressure needed to hold that needle bar back in place. And then you're taking all the strain off your machine, your coils aren't going to start getting hot, you know, you're not going to burn anything out, and your machine's just going to run, and it's going to be really nice to tattoo with. But when you've got a machine like this, I mean, I'd say 2 bands at the very tops you might get away with, but when you've got all these bands on here, there's just no need to do it, and all you're doing is you're putting loads and loads of pressure, added strain on your coils on your machine. So let's take them off and then we'll get the machine bagged up. So really easy to bag your machine, guys. Take your clip cord sleeve, and what I do is I take the end that goes into your actual power pack and I drop that into your clip cord sleeve, let gravity do its job, just drop it all the way to the bottom until you find the end that clips onto your machine. and then just put them together, pull the bag over, and then let the ends of these actually pierce the bag. I'm just going to pierce that one, pierce that one. So now we're going to set that to one side. We're going to get our machine bag. Now, covering coil machines, the important point to make is when you put your bag around it, to make sure that the front contact screw and the armature bar is not obstructed by the bag in any way. You know, if you've got the like plastic rubbing on here or anything like that, it's going to put your machine out a little bit and make it not run as good as it would do if you just got that clearance on it. So with that in mind, just going to pop this bag over the top of it. You can see I've got that clearance there. The bag's not touching the armature bar there, or the contact screw or the front spring. Just make a bit of a seal around here on top of the grip. Then you can use a little bit of tape just to hold that in place. And finally, we're just going to bring back the clip cord cable and attach that. So everything's got a nice seal on it. So you just poke that through there, through that bag, and just go straight through it. And again, with the bottom one. Now, a really important point to make as well, guys, is, you know, you should always use one of these when you're tattooing. And I will go as far as saying this: if you ever go to a tattoo studio and you see a tattooist tattooing without one of these on, just walk straight out the door. Don't even entertain them, because for me, this is the #1 deal breaker. You know, I mean, not having these bags on, for me, it's as bad as reusing needles on people. It really is. It's so dangerous. And I know some tattooists actually tattoo not using these, and time again, I'll see videos of people tattooing and they haven't got these bags on. They're cheap enough to buy, and it's just really irresponsible if you don't use these. So that's it, we're bagged up, wrapped up, locked and loaded, fully tuned up, ready to go, and we've only got that one elastic band on. If you did like this video, guys, please hit that like button. Take a second out just to hit it. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And really important, hit the notification bell. You'll stay up to date with all my latest uploads. And with all that said, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.